I am starting to draw a few blanks in terms of what I've seen from him and seen well with Kai'Sa Yunara taken off the board. I think that the Corki denial, the Xayah and Sivir denial as well are pretty big takeaways from this AD carry in particular. So maybe having to go back deeper into the pool, Jinx Aphelios type territory, maybe looking at something that's not necessarily as well played for the Weibo bot laner. And I think that obviously last game we got to see him do some good work, but in a series where he's put on a little bit of a back burner, it could end up being a struggle, and has been frequently in these 2 games so far. JDG's route to success is through Peyz.
Okay, well, they're really going to play through him in this game with a Lucian locked in on a B1. Now, there's a lot of options to pair alongside it. Also, some different situations for Waybo to try to match up against it, but this is definitely JDG laying down the gauntlet here in this 4th game.
All right, and what's the response then? I mean, this is, again, you are taking the back seat by doing this, and it does sort of begin the looks of a dive composition with the Jhin here. Again, Jhin, you know, whilst I say that as an immobile AD carry, it's the fact that he can layer damage from afar, which means that he can contribute to that dive. The curtain call opens up, and then you can start doing the damage from long range as well to support that diving cast. Bard going alongside this. I like this as a pairing with the Jhin, but I'm not sold on it in the matchup versus Lucian, so I wouldn't mind seeing them hold it for a little while. The Ambessa gets taken here very early and blind into that top side. And we'll see what it is that Xiaoxu looks to answer Breathe with here.
Well, he played the Scion in that last game. The Ambessa here to try and get a little bit more carry threat. And wow, we're just going pocket pick after pocket pick. That is Shun's signature Kindred banned away from JDG in game number 3. This time he will get his hands on it alongside that Braum for Zhuo.
So we're looking at things like Gragas maybe as an answer. I love the Braum lock-in as a pairing for this, because you can then block that Gragas cask. But the Kindred ulti is going to be massive. I love the way that the second that we see one set of dive come through, it's immediately, okay, we're disengaged. Kindred, Braum, let's lock it in. And I think that the pairing of Braum plus double marksman is always going to go really well also. So we may expect to see Waybo now pivot away from this slightly dive-focused composition, which is going to cause Breathe a few issues, don't get me wrong. And it does then set up for a Bard lock-in for Crisp. This bot lane matchup now not necessarily as easy as JDG might have hoped for. Obviously, it's Lucian Braum. It's a tried and tested duo, but if Crisp can play and the minions not get hit by a Winter's Bite, should be a pretty okay position for the Jhin Bard lane to be.
And now Waybo fully positioned to play away from this bottom lane. Have Crisp go on some roams. Maybe help Xiaohu out and put him in a position like he was in game number 3. And kind of leaving light on that island here for this 4th game. As long as he can survive against that Lucian Braum, of course. Take a look at the second bans that are coming through. Xiaoxu not going to be able to play the York, which is going to be pretty decent into the Ambessa. We also see the Lee Sin for Tian taken away. Obviously has very much high experience on that throughout his career. You can also kick somebody out of the Lamb's Respite as a big counter to that Kindred ultimate. As we see some more bans coming across the board, we're looking for solo lanes on the JDG side and mid-jungle duo here for Waybo.
So likelihood is that they lock their jungler here. Again, it's a pretty pinched pool. So we're maybe seeing something like a Maokai, something like a Sejuani as a bit of setup to pair up with the Ambessa. Still do have a myriad of mid lane options to go for as well. Importantly noting that the Azir has been banned, but you talked about that Xiaohu has been this player to resort to slightly unique mid lane picks. Lissandra here, pairing up nicely with the dive. Maybe the first time that we've seen this coming out in a very long time.
Actually, we saw Knight play this a couple of days ago in the upper bracket the lower bracket upper bracket, I should say, to advance BLG to that winners finals against English Gaming. It looked very good. So they're, maybe a lack of damage at least at this point for Waybo, but it's well-rounded enough, especially as you get later on into this game, that it might not be too much of a concern. As we see Xiaoxu locking in a staple. That's an Udyr top lane here to round out the top side of the map here for his team. Gonna be able to be a bit of a brick wall against that Ambessa. And if this gets locked in, we're getting super funky. The true colors of Fearless are starting to show here, Rude. That's a Swain for Scout.
It's just going to be, it needs to be something crazy. It needs to match. I don't know that Talon gets locked in. That would be wild. But I'm not sure what we're getting. This feels weird, honestly. This feels like Game 5, but we're into Game 4, and I hope, by extension, I really hope that Waybo win this game to see what Game 5 draft is going to look like. We have Lissandra, we have Zed, we've got the Swain and the Kindred and Ood here as well. This is good stuff. I'm a fan of this. Let's try and dive in and break down a little bit of what these compositions are going to look to do and what their goals are, because I do think that JDG are so vastly outclassing Waybo's draft here that it's not even funny. JDG locked very early this Kindred Braum duo in preempting a little bit of dive from Waybo, where they saw the Ambessa and they said, "Oh, that's a dive champion. Let's pull a little bit of peel. Let's give a bit of protection, and let's hopefully be able to play this fight out from the back foot." And then Waybo said, "You thought we were diving with Ambessa? Hold on 1 second. Let me raise you a Lissandra and a Zed. We are definitely diving, and there is nothing that you can do to stop us," is their theory. However, JDG have drafted the full anti-dive. They've got Swain, who loves people running into him. We've got Braum. We've got Kindred. 3 champions that are just great at absorbing dive. And I hope that Waybo can pull it off. Don't get me wrong. Game 5 draft looks like it's going to be on fire, but this looks like it's so difficult for them to play out if they don't get a lead early.
Yeah, Waybo are going to have to win this game in about 20 minutes. Otherwise, it's going to be pretty tough to try to take down any of the big carries. You have Swain healing, you have Braum unbreakable, you of course have the Lamb's Respite here for Shun. And he knows how to use that ability rather well. One of his favorite champs. Going to be selected to try to advance JD Gaming into top 4 of the LPL. Waybo have a very clear game plan, but JDG have a pretty good answer. We'll see how things unfold as Waybo try to force a decider.
敌军还有30秒到达战场，碾碎他们。
They were spot on the ward there. As scouting out here for the side of Waybo. They're able to prevent any carries level 1s that would have obviously been pretty disastrous if any members went down.
Yeah, and well, I mean, for me, again, I'm very curious to see how Waybo look to extend the rate and the pace, rather, of this game. I think they got very much lost in the sauce, I'm going to be honest, in the way that they wanted this draft to play out. JDG can kind of walk in. They've got Braum level 1. I'm expecting them to do some pretty crazy stuff, and you can see this could very well be more kills at level 1 than we saw in the entirety of last game.
It's going to a potential 5v5 level 1 in Game 4. They've already stunned up Xiaohu with the concussive blows, and he will drop to the might of Shun. That's first blood to JDG. And the rest of Waybo now have to flee their own jungle, at least for now, as JDG Gaming get exactly what they asked for.
But I think that's fine, honestly, if you're Waybo at the minute. You lose your mid lane, he's going to be able to TP back in. That's not the worst case in the world. The fact that Jun gets the first blood is maybe the biggest deal here, I'm going to be honest, as we take a look at some of the win-loss ratios for this composition. Jun 2-0 when he gets his hand on this Kindred. Peyz as well, 4. He's stepping in 1v2.
1v2, he has the level advantage, I suppose. It costs him a barrier, but Light and Crisp use summoner spells of their own. So we're already seeing JDG's bot lane, or at least bot laner, singular, at this point, exerting dominance over what Waybo have to offer.
Okay, well, again, we're along for the ride here, you and I, Grapes. My predetermined expectations for this are that JDG should smoke Waybo with this draft, but I'm open to being proven wrong. I'm open to a Zed pop-off with the Lissandra in tow. I do think that the thing that we have to talk about is getting that reset, and if they can blow up that first target, you then get Lissandra passive to go through. You then have a pretty decent chance at running through what should be a weaker front line. But I do just think that as this game gets later and later, Swain, I mean, this is pretty recent. This isn't as fun a stat as I was hoping it would be. Oh, it was this year.
They these for like the 1,000 days. This was earlier this year, man.
Okay, cool. But it was, I think that cutting through that Swain in particular is going to be pretty difficult. What's the consistent DPS look like on this Waybo roster? nothing. Like, Jin autos are the most consistent thing that you've got. Maybe Zed passive coming through and comboing people, but Swain's just going to sustain it with a stasis and be an absolute fiend.
Yeah, Waybo are going to need to heal cut quick, and I think in general, their goal with the composition is to never fight a 5v5, at least in one where there are not, major cooldowns already exerted on the JDG side of things. Because if you eventually get to one of those 5v5 fights, obviously we saw it level 1, but it's just going to continue to compound the amount of anti-dive that Waybo have, or that JDG have against Waybo. Means that for Waybo's competition to work, they basically have to just have numbers advantages at any engage in any fight that they try to take.
Yeah, I'm even thinking, like, just looking at the side laning as well, like, can they try and play 1-3-1? And I mean, Lissandra probably doesn't push that well. Ambessa versus the UD is probably just going to get the wave cleared. Tian. Oh. The double whiff on shurikens.
On to Shun, on his Kindred, already having 1 kill. 40 and 17, by the way, in his career on this champion. He knows his way around the Lamb and the Wolf, and off to a fantastic start with that first blood. We'll see how far he can keep it rolling.
So looking importantly, I say importantly, probably not so much, but looking at those Swain stacks, how easy it is for the Swain to start getting a bit of bonus HP. Hold on.
His bite. Landing onto Breathe. He's chunked very low. Already flashes away. One more auto from Peyz should do it, but they're not able to land it. The tower's heated up and will force both Peyz and Zhuo back. Nicely done by Breathe to survive the initial 2v1.
If you ever wanted an example of why you should eat your biscuits and drink your potions, that's a very good case. I will also advocate for nerfs to Second Wind and Doran's Shield as a tandem duo, because the reason Breathe lived there is because he gets low on HP, and then those 2 runes kick into overdrive, and he's just absolutely fine. But flash burned on that top side, it's not nothing, right? The top laner with no flash, definitely something that could look to be exploited. And you get to see that out here, Light moves into this top side, makes his way into pushing this wave. Unfortunately for Peyz, he's going to be able to collect, I would say, the majority of this. Maybe loses, well, loses nothing. So look at this massive wave that he's going to be able to get. Zhuo will walk in and sap some of the XP, but even decides actually to give all of this solo to Peyz. Really good heads-up play, just saying he knows where the carry is. He doesn't need this experience yet. He's level 3 on Braum. That's as good as it gets.
It's a little better, but not as good as having Lucian levels, right? So, yeah, fair enough point there, as we can already see Peyz starting to get this snowball rolling in the bottom lane. Now rotated to the top lane for JDG as they find another stun onto Chris. Shun gonna join for good measure and pick him up with the E. It's 2-0 for JD Gaming as things are falling apart fast for Waybo.
That is so wild that Waybo are positioning like that. Even in the 2 versus 2, they don't win that, and maybe they get to live, but they should never be sat in a brush trying to bait for a fight up against a Lucian Braum. And the fact that they did, they get collapsed on, right? Like, they end up losing their life, and that's a pretty big disaster here. As you can see, once again, Peyz dancing with Light, baits out the barrier, and here's Jun.
They're going to come right back to the scene of the crime. Another stun lands onto Chris. Peyz launches forward with a double shot. Kindred, not even necessary, but he'll be able to pick up Crisp on top of it. It's 4-0 for JD Gaming.
No, that was absolutely disgusting from Peyz there. He lands the Q through Crisp onto Light, recognizes he has lethal. Flash double hit with the piercing shots means that he takes down Light without him ever flashing out to safety. And this is just Lucian Brauming in a whole other level. This is going so well for JDG. And this is even before it was supposed to be going well for them.
Yeah, this is the point where JDG was supposed to be weak, man. They're the ones with the early game aggression. And it's all thanks to Peyz setting up this beautiful engage in a 2v1. And the rest of the team is able to follow up on it.
Just watch this here as he Qs through Crisp on the stun, positions himself down to get the Q, flashes in for the double hit. I mean, it's just clinical. Like, that is beautiful Lucian play right there. It's a reason for B1ing, that's for sure.
I mean, hey, he's been able to do pretty well on it already, unlocking level 6 by the time the grub spawn. Pretty good scaling to get things rolling for the side of Peyz. A player that, of course, replaced on his old team by the member of JDG that was originally a part of this roster last year when they lost to Waybo in that regional finals. And it looks like this young AD carry, a superstar in the making, He's looking to etch his mark in LPL history himself.
And of course, the goal for this JDG organization is to get back to that international glory. The fastest way for them to do it is to win this split. Let's see if they can wrap up grand finals and continue their run through this lower bracket. Forced down here after a reverse sweep by BLG, hoping to not have history repeat itself here up against Waybo, but in this second game at match point, they're looking much better overall here, Grapes, and these Void Grubs looking like another boon to take in their name.
This is one of the most one-sided early games that we've had all series, Root, and it's very much in JDG's favor at this point. Remember, a lot of us were favoring Weibo here in this series just because of what they were able to do so far in the playoffs, the fact that they were a higher seed in the regular season. I mean, when you beat the defending champions in a 5-game series, and you're going up against a team that almost lost to EDG in a 5-game series. I feel like in general, you look at the resumes in recent history and would favor Weibo here, but JDG have unlocked a new gear, seemingly going into the lower bracket, and they look unleashed, and truly a team that is potentially one to be feared even against some of these top teams.
Let's see, how easy is it to kill a Swain?
Looks like this time maybe a little bit easier as Scout gets collapsed upon. That is a flash from Xiaohu and a ton of damage issued onto him. So Scout's going to tank that death, head back for a little bit because he knows the rest of his team is doing very much well and dandy without it.
Now if they can execute on that in a late game, that is going to be very, very positive for Waybo. This combo of you know, Zed plus Lissandra, it makes it very easy to take out one target. You can't really miss the shurikens when the person's rooted for 3 seconds without something having gone very wrong. Now, hopefully this can be leveraged and can be pushed into that late game, but I think that as we move later and later on, this Swain going to get tankier and tankier. You can see Scout in his build path working straight towards a Rylai's as well, so he's looking to just keep everybody in his zone and keep them controlled as best as possible. Essence we've already picked up for Peyz, so he's miles ahead of where he should be, really, and he's just looking so good in this stage with Kraken Slayer picked up for Jun as well. There's a Dragon Life down on that bot side, so I'd like to see JDG just look to do their due diligence, don't get me wrong, but let's see about making sure that we can secure all of these objectives and make sure that Weibo don't really have anything to come back into this game from.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Weibo's angle is they're able to get an early soul, and all hopes of that now taken away as Shun is able to make his way down here, pick that one up for himself. But we saw there on the top side of the map, Root, that is how Weibo need to continue to play this game out. Find numbers advantages, find picks, and hopefully try to funnel some gold into their carries. Now Tian has a kill under his belt, obviously still not ahead of Shun, but now in a position where maybe he's able to do a little bit more damage to some of the backline carries, find some more one-shots, and try to, you know, keep this train rolling for Weibo, one that has gotten off to a slow start.
Yeah, rocky one as well at that. It's not been good for them to begin with. You can see Jun 3-0 on the Kindred is doing very, very well, and having found 2 of those early neutral objectives in the Grubs and in the Drake as well. Currently only sat at 2 Kindred marks as the culling goes down mid lane, Light able to pop Yomus and get out of the majority of that DPS, but nothing damage that's going down.
I mean, that's how you want to play Lucian at this stage in the game. Sit in the mid lane, use that culling, and gain as much priority as you can. We'll see Weibo's play on the other side is sending 4 members once again up to top lane to try to take down the Xiaoxu onto the Udyr. He is stacking up a ton of armor. That means that Xiaohu will be able to do a little bit of damage to him, but it looks like he is safe enough under his turret to prevent any sort of attack.
And it is Proto Belt Lissandra as well, so we are looking more towards a setup for killing somebody. And you know, we've seen Proto Belts most likely on Nico. You don't have that same impact where if you ult yourself, it's a good slow and maybe a good bit of damage, but
yeah, they're going to have to make this work. They will be able to. Death mark in from Tian. Kill goes over to Chris, which is a little bit unfortunate, but it was a play that Weibo had to make given what was going on the bottom side of the map. It will be all 5 plates secure for JDG. They will claim the first tower as well.
Yeah, Kindred Lucian are just going to absolutely rip through this turret, and I think that Tian, they're expecting a little bit more resistance from the Udyr as he kind of threw the ulti down, and by the time he'd landed, the poor guy was dead, so maybe a little bit of a waste on that death mark, but we'll get to see whether or not that can be leveraged with that no death mark on the Z. Can they do something with that as Jun ticks up to his 3rd mark of the game being secured on that grab? But gold onto the Z, never bad. Maybe gold going onto the Bard, not the greatest, but they'll take the assists either way.
I mean, they're gonna need a couple more of those, and you know what? We're seeing them at least have some fight, and they're gonna look to do it again. Yeah, just immediately go for more and more plays. Breathe, teleporting to the top lane to try to punish Scout here. Lands the public execution. They're gonna try to CC lock him again, but he will be able to ascend demonically onto the soul laners of Waybo, keeping himself alive. At least for the time being, he is running low on mana, but a flash forward from Breathe will be necessary to take him down.
Yeah, Rylai's as well was doing a lot of work. He does burn the flash from Breathe to be able to find that quick kill on the side lane. Once again, it's Scout now for a 2nd time this game, getting himself caught out. The first one maybe a little bit excusable because it was flash ult from Xiaohu. This time round, though, stepping up on a turret, not really checking for teleports, not having too much respect for the Ambessa or for the timing with which Lissandra could get back into that lane. And once again, give a free window to this Weibo Gaming roster to try and make something happen. Maybe even if it's just establish a bit of vision, defend mid lane a little bit. It's going to be looking pretty good for them as we move into this mid game where Dragon spawns in 90 seconds. We've got Herald spawning in 10 as well. So a quick turnaround if a team wants to try and take both. But again, looking at the way this game is going, I would like to see JDG just look to play for as many of those objectives as possible. Keep your Lucian strong whilst he's in that strong point. You know, the only real weak part of this JD roster for me is that Lucian as we get later into the game. It's going to be very difficult for him to try and play out these fights.
Interesting to note as well, we're at the 15-minute mark. Jun only has 3 Kindred marks at this point, so not reaching that range buff just yet. As we see another pick attempt here on to the top side of the map. It is the site of all the crime so far, but Jun will be able to save his mid laner with the Lamb's respite. So JDG not going down on the top side, and they also get the Rift Herald.
Can I be honest, Grapes? I don't let that guy die. That guy griefed again. Let's give them the gold.
You deserve it.
Work your way towards Dragon. He'd be up in time for the Drake. Like, I don't know. Now you've got no flash, no ulti on the Kindred, no flash on your Swain either for that fight. Like, just tank the death, and we'll see. I mean, we'll see if it ends up having any impact on this Dragon, but probably delays it a little bit. As you know, Jun probably not going to want to fight without his ulti. So maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it's absolutely fine. But I'm going to be honest. Scout, that could have been 3, and I would not have minded.
You know, it is fitting that the one way for Waybo to like win this game with the composition they have is to catch people out in side lanes, and throughout the entire season that is something that JDG have struggled with, whether it's Xiaoxu or Scout or Zhuo or really anybody. They haven't really done it this series though, and that's perhaps a concern, although we have seen now Tian able to get online a couple of times. But now without that land respite, they're going to start at the Dragon.
My Kindred has no ulti. Why can't we take this fight? What's happening?
Already the Drake secured, but now it's a 4v5, turning into a 5v5 with Scout on the way. Frozen Claw comes out from Xiaohu, but he does not want to go back in. So it is Waybo evening things up in the Drake department.
That feels really rough for me as a if you're JDG, right? You're so far ahead in this game. You have this 3-0 Kindred who you're just hamstringing, not making him able to fight because he burned his ulti to try and save his mid laner, who's stepping forward on a wave he has no right to step forward on it. Slows this game down by another 5 minutes and makes it so that JDG, as we get later into this game, are going to have to navigate it that bit better, right? It's going to have to be that this game gets pushed into that late game, and Xiaohu can be fine to get out to safety with that claw. That's all to say that this JD composition still massively outscales Waybo. Like, the way the compositions function against one another is massively favoured for Jindong Gaming. It's about whether or not they can actually make it there, or rather, not whether they can make it there, they're already ahead, but just making sure that they can do what they need to.
Should able to get another mark here, making it 5 on the Kindred stack. So now, you know, as soon as I said it, starting to get there as well. But you know, credit to Waybo. They are trying to trade stuff across the map. They know that they can't look for the 5v5s, especially with that land respite up. So Breeze able to take a tier 1 down on the bottom side of the Rift. Keep things rather close. Obviously, JDG are still ahead, but hey, 2,000, not the end of the world right now.
2 items for Jun as he walks back out onto the map with a Trinity Force locked and loaded. Sees Tian clearing out one of these wards and decides he doesn't want that to happen. Good chunk already. I mean, if he gets that 3rd auto attack down, I think Tian goes to like probably 30% HP. It's not a good situation for the Z to be in, where he's losing out on the 1v1s versus marksmen. Either way, we get to see if there's more to be had. With Atacon spawning in 90 seconds, it is spawning up on that top side, so all this jockeying and positioning around the bot side may be all for naught.
JDG look to continue to pressure as they see a blue buff spawning and want to claim it. Should be able to do so rather simply, as Tian does not want to shadow in there to his demise. Will allow for Shun to pick this one up, as JDG trying to build off of what has been a up and down split so far. They're looking for another fight here in the mid lane, forcing Crisp to flash away, as this tier 1 tower should be going down against a double marksman competition. Xiaohu does not decide to continue to engage, and here comes the culling, and Crisp just gets deleted. Tian the next target as well, as he will go down unless the redemption is there to save him. A root lands onto Light as well, as it's just the 1-for-0 in favor of JDG.
But look who's coming here, Breathe. Able to push in that top side, doesn't go for the turret, instead looks to try to help out his team. And they desperately need it here. They're losing the tier 2 turret. They're just getting sieged on. And for all of the misgivings of Scout in the early game, it's his W's, his visions of Empire that have been starting off these fights. This is a composition from JDG that has no engage. They're relying so heavily on the Rylai slope from the W of Scout that he's actually starting these off. Tian goes in here, but Crisp ultimately just tanks the entire culling. Tian knows that he has to get in and get back out, and I'm surprised he was able to actually stay alive. Looks like we cut back to live as Peyz was maybe looking for an execution play on to Light, but nothing quite left to be found. But Atacon now spawned, JDG with a comfortable gold lead, hoping that they can just close out this series, because what they don't want is to go to another Game 5 with shades of their BLG series back in their mind.
Yeah, I'm sure they're thinking about it, or thought about it a little bit, even though they don't want to admit it, as it would be a pretty uncomfortable situation to put yourself in, especially now, Roodood, as they give up this sort of a lead. 4,000 with the late game comp, starting up the Otacon at around the 20-minute mark. Tempered Fate's going to slow things down, as Waybo feel like they have to fight at this point in the game, but I don't think they're going to be able to close the gap to secure this Otacon steal. Hexgate over the wall from both solo laners as a TP comes in from Scout. The Otacon's at 2k HP. A public execution lands, and in goes Xiaohu. They're able to lock. Peyz down. The Lamb's Respite is stalled too late, but it's still Scout with the Demonic Ascension in, trying to cook away the might of Weibo Gaming, but Light is still alive.
We're swaining,
and JDG have crumbled. It is 4 dead with only Scout still alive, but he's still a tanky Swain. He's going to force Light to flash away, but he'll follow with his own right and take him down with another claw. Now Xiaohu has to flash away from Scout as well. Overall a 4v3 with the Otacon still going to JDG.
Okay, you're getting to see what both of these compositions want to do. JDG are happy for Waybo to engage on them because of this Swain. What they're not happy for is for their AD carry to get popped in an instant. Very well played by Breathe and Tian to get in there, get the Lucian down. And it's that double flank from the solo laners actually that seals the deal here. Peyz on one side just gets picked up by that public execution and then eviscerated. Everything from Lissandra, everything from Ambessa goes on top. And had that Kindred ulti not gone down, it would have been a complete wipe. But this is the power that the Kindred ulti provides you. It gets you that time to reset, to neutralize the rest of the team. And then Scout, this entire time, left unchecked, forcing double flashes from Light and from Xiaohu off the back of this. You can see that this Swain with that Rylai, he's going to be able to keep everybody in place, and it's something that if there are no answers from Waybo, they're going to need to think about.
He'll continue to be a problem, especially now with another dragon picked up here for Shun. Hextech Soul starting to stack up here for JDG, and even though they lost a couple of members in that fight, they're still feeling very much in control of this game and in this series. They take down 2 towers consecutively, as Xiaohu's only able to match with 1 on the top side of the map. Baron's up in a couple of minutes, so it doesn't look like JDG want to push too much further. So they will back off and just reset on these waves. Peyz, very critical part of this composition, but he was the one who got caught out here, Roodood, and that's the start of things unraveling if they were to for JDG.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not sold on Peyz being the lead carry for this this game. obviously he's been a massive part of JDG throughout this entire year, but this game specifically, it's not really about the Lucian. I'm going to be honest, it's about the Kindred, it's about the Swain and the damage that they can do, the health that they have, and what tools it is that they bring to the table. If Waybo commit everything to the Lucian, I think that JDG are probably happy with that, provided that Jun and Scout are able to do what they did in that last team fight. Lucian's not the real carry of this composition, so you know, it's on Weibo to maybe try and recognize that. And you know, as difficult as that may be for them to think we have to kill Peyz because he's such a good player, I think that the benefits that the Kindred have in this game and the benefits that the Swain have are just that little bit better.
Still no Grievous on anybody on Weibo, by the way, as well. I mean, that Swain is just going to continue to heal up with that ultimate unlocked. And hey, it's not bad on, you know, players like Xiaoxu or even Shun with a little bit of healing in his own right. So something that Weibo are going to have to consider to pick up in their inventory.
Give it to the Lissandra.
They're so focused though on just getting core items for themselves too. So it becomes a bit of a balancing.
Yeah, the thing is that it's an 800 gold pit stop, and it just does do so much work for you. I mean, there was one of the best things that got changed was, you know, the fact that grievous wounds were accessible for all classes for quite free. Peyz, no, don't do it.
Oh, he walks straight into Tian.
Oh.
He chunked about 60% HP, and Zhuo shows up at just the right time. I don't think that Tian realized that it was only the support. I feel like if it was just 2v1, he might have tried to go in for the assassination attempt.
If you're not going to go for the assassination on the enemy AD carry, what are we picking Zed for, you know? Like, this is... Maybe if he saw Zhuo there, I think that putting at the very least, putting the Shadow as an exit strategy makes sense. But you could have at least gone for the full combo without ulti. Maybe even got the exhaust out of Zhuo just as something to burn. Maybe barrier from Peyz, but Zed ulti's on such a short cooldown that it's really not a big deal to try and use it, and then it goes wide. Maybe just a bit concerned about the Baron going down, but either way, it's the choice that has been made, and we will live and deal with that as we see fit. For the time being, though, it is JDG continuing to be in that ascendancy.
A situation similar to, albeit on opposite sides, as Game 3, where the kills were even at around this point of the game. You know, it was 1-1, this time 8-7. But the gold very much in JDG's favor, and we like the way that the composition is able to continue being a highly scaling one. We're starting to see the third items picked up here. Peyz gets himself an Infinity Edge. We're seeing Shun work towards that Collector third, and things are just going to go to an even scarier point on JDG's side. It's going to be even harder to kill anybody in the three-way.
Yeah, and I think probably Malignance for Scout, if I had to guess, in the works. He's obviously got that stasis, so can sit on the Seekers whilst he works his way towards that finished Lost Chapter item. I'll keep our eyes out for what it is that he ends up finishing that build path out with. With a minute left on the Dragon, seems like Baron not a particular concern for either of these two sides. Would be good for JDG to secure this, and you know, at this point in the game, it's when you're reminded that it's a good thing that Waybo were able to steal away that earlier Dragon, and it's a good thing that, you know, it was Jun flash ulting Scout, who was 0-2 at that point, to keep him alive. Now, Scout has been able to pay that back with one team fight, but they could be on. This could be them securing the soul had that not been the case.
TP comes in, and right now JDG are doing a great job making sure they can't get picked out.
Oh, no,
However,
oh, no.
Breathe does find that public execution on to Scout, but he's able to use the ultimate in time to keep himself up and healthy. Culling goes down, and it burns a couple of members of Weibo down, who are still safe underneath their tier 2 turret. The curtain call will be blocked by a couple of people with a tempered fate landing onto the Swain, who no longer has the ultimate available. This is Weibo's time to try to go in. 4 shot goes on to Zhuo. It does not find an execute, but Tian will still find the Kindred. But Xiaoxu's still so tanky, and Peyz is flashing forward. He dashes on the light, but will not be able to take him down. And Weibo will be able to come back and save the game at this point underneath their own tier 2.
JDG flubbed the fight. That was theirs for the taking. That could have very easily been the series going their way. But Weibo, they've recognized now how they need to play this out. Swain and Alawi have one thing in common. When they press their R button, you run away. Scout pressed his ulti. Weibo waited. They bought that time. And now they're able to play for a second Dragon in this game that JDG should just be taking without any real consequence. A brilliant Glacial Fissure knocks up 3. Tian here, you know, getting chunked out, but Jun steps a little bit close, takes himself down to about 300 HP. This is fine still. Even at this point, this is absolutely fine. But then as soon as Scout walks forward, he gets caught. Now watch the shurikens from Tian. Jun has ulti. He jumps into both of them. He jumps in the cross of both of them. Gives the reset. The Lissandra passive kills Xiaohu. Light is able to get out to safety because of a well-placed portal. JDG lost that fight, but they're the ones that have gone straight to the Baron.
Well, the good thing is, Jun's going to have his ulti for this Baron fight. The Tempered Fate will stall things out. Tian looking to try to get in there. The public institution only landing in onto Xiaohu. Into the pit they go. Who's going to get the Baron? It's secured by Waybo. But a kill's already been going over as Breathe has dropped. And Peyz still untouched on the back line alongside Shun. A teleport comes in from Scout. It's a double kill for the Kindred, and only Light and Crisp remain on the Waybo side of things. The chase will commence. Shun looking to try to finish off this game, finish off this series for JDG. But the Baron is still in the hands of Waybo. They'll be able to try to save the game for now.
Yeah, it's a massive steal from Tian. It means that this game may not end here. Those Baron up creeps are going to do a good work at stalling JDG, but they might look to close this series out now anyway. Curtain call comes up. Scout can probably tank this to keep the minions alive.
The fourth shot only used onto the wave. There's still a cannon available and a teleport coming in from Xiaohu. Lamb's respite used to try to keep the cannon alive as well. JDG going for the jugular. They're going to try to end this game right here. Xiaohu spawns in 5, but the Nexus is exposed, and JDG are onto it and will take the series 3-1.
It's another one of those games that just, it's so close for so long, and then one fight happens. And the team wins or loses. JDG continue in the lower bracket. Waybo will not get a chance to get that direct berth into Worlds. They're going to have to battle their way through the regional qualifier the hard way. They cement themselves as that 6th seed and as the team that are going to have to do the most legwork to get into Worlds at all. But JDG here, 3-1 victory on the day, puts them with a rematch or a match now up against IG or AL.
What a series for JDG, a team that has been doubted so much throughout the season, and that man Shun putting the team on his back, on his signature pick. Now 41-17 on the Kindred in his career. And shout out to the rest of the team as well. Peyz a masterful performance all series long. The rest of the role players stepping up when necessary. And now JDG have locked themselves a spot in top 4. Remember, they finished 3rd in Split 1. It feels like it's been so long ago because of some of their recent struggles, but this is a team that we've been able to see the highs of, especially when the core of their team, when Shun, Scout, and Peyz are able to all be at their A game.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, that they looked really good today. I think Scout for 2 out of 3 games looked like a fiend, and for Peyz 3 out of 3 without doubt. Jun again 3 out of 3 without doubt. He was looking like an absolute menace throughout the majority of this series. I think that Xiaoxu as well looked pretty good. Have no real complaints. He got focused a lot in game number 1. Was still very relevant on that Rumble. Same to be said for when he gets his hands on things like, you know, the Cassante in game number 2. He earned himself an MVP. Was that real linchpin in that top side that carried them through to a victory. And then even in this final game, you know, not necessarily the biggest pop-off performance, but he was playing the Udyr. He was there causing chaos, causing carnage, and making sure that this Jin couldn't really play the game.
And again, it's a composition that you have to throw some question marks at for Waybo. I mean, they saw the Kindred in the Braum, and they still decided to fully go in to a full dive composition. They were able to find some angles and find some picks. I mean, that last fight was also still particularly close. It was a 3v2 at the end of it, but you know, the bigger carries were still alive, and they were able to finish things off. And for Waybo, it's back to the drawing board now. They made it through the lower end of the gauntlet in 2023 when they made it all the way to the World's Finals eventually. They're going to have to try to do that again, potentially with JDG once more standing in their way if they want to have a chance to make it back to Worlds.
Entirely possible. I mean, I'm very excited for our regional qualifiers, but we've got like a final. We've got these grand finals still to resolve, and you know, JDG putting their stamp into the lower semis now. They're going to have a really difficult task. I think that Waybo definitely the weaker of the teams that were left, even though they've beaten AL in this playoffs run already. They unfortunately weren't able to repeat that success up against different teams. Maybe JDG are going to get that opportunity, right? A massive best of 5 tomorrow for, you know, 2 teams that we conceivably thought could have been a part of our final.
Yeah, lose to JDG, beat AL is a weird way for your playoff run to go, but that is how it is here for Weibo Gaming. And if you're JDG, again, this is now the time for that roster to fully live up to its potential. It hasn't gotten there in quite a bit, you know, with some of these new pieces coming in, shuffling around on the edges of things. Xiaoxu and Zhuo now entering the fray. This could be the opportunity for them to fully reach their apex, right? And no time like now to do it against the top teams in the league in the last season or last season of the year before you head on to Worlds.
Absolutely, right? Like, we've got what could be 5 best-of-5 games left for JDG, right? They've got semis, lower finals, grand finals if they make it there, then regionals as well. Like, there's a lot of League of Legends that they can still play, and, you know, shout out to our statistics from earlier. Unfortunately, not able to make it an even more game 5 series, 5-game series that they run to. You know, typically JDG do love a 5-gamer in 2025, but they ended us on 4 today, and, you know, they've still got plenty of time to rewrite that.
Yeah, and I mean, we take a look at just how this game went. I'm sure we'll get into the highlights in a little bit, as I'm pretty sure right now they're going through some of their post-game festivities on the broadcast. But, man, full domination from the start. I mean, as soon as we saw JDG pick up that first blood, we knew things were going to be very difficult for what Waybo had, and we were proven right. And you know, somebody that, you know, we talk about Peyz and what he was able to do all series. He was, you know, a big factor, of course, in this clincher, but what a series from Shun as well, right? I mean, a jungler that has so much to prove, trying to etch himself into the books as a top player in the league, able to really outplay Tian, I think, in most of the games today.
And I think that, you know, we talk about Scout, or rather Jun, for a good reason, because he really was instrumental. I don't know that he'll be credited. He probably gets MVP for this 3rd win of theirs, but you know, game 1 and game 2 that they won, he was still, again, an absolute menace. But I do want to take a minute just to kind of finally give some praise to Scout for the series win he gets up against Xiaohu, where he'd been so long in the shadow of Xiaohu in these really important series in that head-to-head. Finally, he was able to beat that demon, to knock out the player who's denied him so frequently.
Now, I hate to do this, but one could argue, okay, like, obviously, competing for a championship is very important. Eliminating Waybo from that opportunity is a very big win for Scout. However, when we take a look at the history of big matches that matter, you know, for going to internationals.
True.
Maybe we haven't gotten to that full form yet for Waybo. Maybe it will be in that regional final where they're able to fully unlock. We saw Xiaohu have a great game on the Twisted Fate, but I think overall Scout, clearly the better mid laner. The question is, will that be enough to lift JDG to a Worlds appearance like they've been hoping for all season?
Yeah, and then that is going to be the big question mark, isn't it? Is if they can make it to Worlds, then you know, absolutely we're along for the ride and saying that Scout's done all the hard work. But if they don't make it there, then it was really all for nothing, and you know, maybe the nature of this series then becomes a little bit muted in that sense, that it's just actually not as important at the minute. And you know, we get to see a little bit of a few of these highlights to see, you know, the bright spots for Waybo. I get to see some of the lowlights from JDG as well, as jumping into double shurikens is never going to bode well for you, my friend. But even still, you get to see that even in these really dire situations, it still Peyz looking to make those plays where he hops in, trying to take down Light, do what he can. And this is that final fight. I want to highlight the fact that this was actually a 5 versus 4. There was never a Swain in this fight. Swain did nothing. Scout was recalled and TPing in.
Yeah,
and then
he's
the
still channeling it at the end right there.
Scout wasn't a part of that fight.
He had a hand in ending the game at the Nexus, but yes, 4v5, and it was just a 2 for 3 at the end of it. So gotta feel pretty good about that if you are JDG, as again, tall tasks ahead of them, as only the kind of presumptive top 4s of the league remain ahead of them at this point, right? They'll face the winner of IG versus AL. They'll then, if they win that game, have to face the loser of BLG versus TS. And if they can get through that game, they of course play the other of those two. So we'll really have to, I mean, talk about a gauntlet. The regional finals isn't really set up that way anymore. That is what is set up for JDG if they want to have an automatic path to the World Championship by winning the split.
Absolutely. And I think that that's a really big takeaway for them, is that And maybe just for all teams, this is a common mantra. If you want to be the best, you have to beat the best. And JDG are going to have to beat 3 of the 4 best teams that the LPL has had in split number 3. So it's definitely going to be a task for them, and definitely going to be something that they need to look towards as their, okay, I've got this in the bag, or actually we need to do a little bit of work. And I think it's probably the latter one, where they know that they've not played perfectly. I think that Game 3 is a pretty clear example of that, where they get 1 kill and lose in 30 minutes. But there are things that they can do to improve. There are also things that they can do that they can be re-emphasizing, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, only time will tell if this form is consistent or if it was just, playing against Waybo here for JDG. Time, we'll get that test sooner rather than later, as there are still many more matches ahead of them, as Jun rightfully earning that MVP on the Kindred. We don't have to talk about that fight where he accidentally ran into a full Z combo into a Lissandra's son, but the rest of the game was great.
Yeah, he did do really well. I mean, he got the 3 early kills, which was a really big boost for JDG, and obviously pushed them already pushed them ahead of the curve, which they needed.
Yeah, I mean, a great series overall for Shun. Him, Peyz, Scout, the 3 consistent members of this roster throughout the year, able to finally look in true form. Of course, they took BLG to 5. They were able to win a gritty series against EDG, and then now a 3-1 win over Weibo Gaming. And their tasks do not get more simple as the rest of this playoff bracket goes along. If they want to try to earn themselves a spot at Worlds, still much more League of Legends to play and many more Nexuses to take down. But before we head out for the day on LPL English, let's take a look at the updated playoff bracket that certainly has gotten a bit of a shuffle. JDG securing themselves a spot in top 4, facing off against the winner of IG and AL.
Yeah, and that series obviously being played tomorrow, same time, same place, so don't hesitate to keep yourselves glued to the screen for tomorrow. It's a really big series. Either of these 2 teams could have, in an alternate universe, made it to the final without particularly too much trouble, but they find themselves in the lower bracket, and they're going to have to try and battle their way out of it now to really show what they're made of in these grand finals.
And of course, after that, we have our winners bracket finals between BLG and TS. And then after that, the lower bracket semis, which of course will take us right into championship weekend, where we will have not only the losers and grand finals, but also that regional finals kind of all happening in quick succession, if I am not mistaken. So plenty of more action to come here on LPL English, and really want to thank everybody who's been along the ride with us all 3 of those splits. Of course, we're getting towards the end of things, but there's still a lot more high-stakes League of Legends to watch here on this channel, so make sure you send a follow, you subscribe to us over on the YouTube channel, and you know exactly where we're going to be tomorrow here for our next series between AL and IG. Before we head off for the day, I want to give a big shout-out to our Elite Coffee supporters, Aaron Soup, Mong, and Forrest Without. Their pledged financial contributions help level up the broadcast and give back to the cast and crew who strive to give you an English LPL product every day. Roodood, it's been fun, and we'll see what the rest of the league has in store. Any final thoughts before we wrap up the show for today?
No, once again, everybody, just make sure that you're staying tuned. It's the playoffs. They've been crazy so far. I think that this may be one of the more tame days that you've seen, and that's with a 7-kill game that went 30 minutes. Come back tomorrow, come back Monday, come back Tuesday, and we're going to have more action for you.
Absolutely. So it was a pleasure to cast alongside you for these 4 games. Could have been 5, but maybe we'll get that down the road as we wrap up the season. On behalf of my co-caster Roodood, our producer Kai, and of course everybody watching at home, my name is Grapes. Thank you so much for tuning in to LPL English for the day. Final score here, JDG 3, Weibo 1. We'll see you all tomorrow for our next series.